Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Narayanam namaskrityam Aram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Kuto Jaya Mudiraya Nasta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Very nice to be with you this morning. We're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 1, Text 22. Do we have it? Okay. Apsaro Muni Gandharva Siddha Vidyadha Rogai Siddha Vidyadha Rogai Vita Yamana Yashashas Kad Asrama Padamyayu Apsaro Muni Gandharva Siddha Vidyadharo Ragai Yamana Yashasas Kad Asrama Padamyayu 10.
Apsaro Muni Gandharva
Apsaro Gandharva
Vidyadharunagay
Siddha Vidyadharunagay Vidyaman
Ashrama Padam Yayudu
Ashrama Padam Yayu
Apsaro Muni Gandharva
Apsara Gandharva Siddha Vidyadharunagay Vidyaman Yashastas
Ashrama Padam Yayudu
Ashrama Padam Yayu Apsaro Gandharva Vidyadharunagay Vihayamaya Yashastas Ashrama Padam Yayu Vaishnavis Apsaro Gandharva Siddha Vidyadharunagay Vidyaman Yashastas Ashrama Padam Yayu Apsara Heavenly Society Women Muni Great Sages Gandharva Inhabitants of the Gandharva planet Siddha of Siddha Loka Vidyadhara other demigods Uragai the inhabitants of Nagaloka Vita Yamana being spread Yashasaha fame, reputation That is Ashrama Padam hermitage Yayu went. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. At that time, the three deities approached the hermitage of Atri Muni, accompanied by the denizens of heavenly planets, such as the celestial beauties, the Gandharvas, the Siddhas, the Vidyadharas, and the Nagas. Thus, they entered the ashram of the great sage who had become famous by his austerities. Purport. It is advised in the Vedic literature that one should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the universe and the master of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. He is known as the Supersoul. And when one worships the Supersoul, all other deities, such as Brahma and Shiva, appear with Lord Vishnu, because they are directed by the Supersoul. Prabhupada Ki Jai. So it advised in Vedic literature that one should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the universe, and master of creation, maintenance, and dissolution, known as the Super Soul. So when one worships the Super Soul, that's an interesting phrase, huh? How do we worship the Super Soul? We don't have the Super Soul on the altar. Super Soul is the expansion of Vishnu, who is exclusively in the material world. He is all-pervading within every atom and in between every atom. And Sarvasya Chaham Hredi Sanivishto, he's sitting in everybody's heart. He gives us Mata Smritir Jnana, remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge, and Apolanam, and illusion or forgetfulness. I wonder if we could say the Super Soul has incarnated as the cell phone, because the cell phone gives us knowledge and also forgetfulness. Right? You ever go for something, you want some information? I think I'll just Google this real quick. And then as soon as you get on, oh, there's a little rabbit hole going this way. And you go down that rabbit hole, and then you think, what did I pick it up for in the first place? Right? So the Super Soul is Krishna's present in our hearts, in our lives. He's in everybody's heart. Everybody is getting messages from the super soul. And how to connect and hear those messages. This is how, when Prabhupada says we worship the super soul, this is how we worship the super soul. In other words, knowing that Krishna is trying to reach out to us and to give us knowledge, to give us direction. Science calls this intuition. So there's something that everybody knows, you get a certain inclination to act in one way or another. In Krishna consciousness, we understand this is Krishna trying to give us messages. Krishna is so very amazing because he wants us to come to him. I was raised with this concept of God as being the very judgmental God, Judeo-Christian God, very judgmental, like we had better follow or else. This is pretty much the message of theology that we were brought up with. The last words of the Old Testament in the Bible, for example, are, "Lest I smite the earth with a curse." You better obey. You better obey or else, lest I smite the earth with a curse. People like, governments like religion for this reason, because it kind of intimidates people and gets them to be subservient. Religion can get people to be tolerant of things that they would otherwise not tolerate. Religion can get people to behave in a moral way. The Nazi regime of Germany, for example, was religious. They were advocating Christianity, nationalist Christianity. In Russia, the government is nominally religious, with the Russian Orthodox Church. Many violent countries are doing so in the name of God, inflicting suffering on other people just for some kind of material return in the name of God. Srila Prabhupada used to say that when two armies are competing, they're both praying to God for victory. He said, God is perplexed. Which side shall I support? This is not what it means to worship the super soul. Really, worshiping the super soul means to feel his presence, but then take affirmation from Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. Super soul is called the Chaita Guru, sitting in the heart. But it is not sufficient to just say, well, Krishna is telling me to act in this way. That leaves plenty of room for speculation and fanaticism. This kind of worship is very superficial. This kind of belief in God is superficial. I'm thinking of Gopal Bone, the minister, the jester. So one time he was carrying, he was sewing a garland with banana flowers. Banana flowers can be used both as a flower or as a subject. So he's sewing a big garland of banana flowers. And his friend came and said, that's a very nice garland. He said, yes, and Krishna is going to come personally and take it from me. And what if Krishna doesn't come personally and take it from me? If Krishna does not come personally and take this garland from me, then I'm going to cook it up and eat it. This kind of motivated worship is rejected by Rupa Goswami. I'm worshiping God so that I can win the war, so that I can get some material prosperity. What Krishna is actually calling us to do is the super soul is much more subtle and much less materialistic. Krishna is wanting us to give him our love and express that love through his devotees. The way that we deal with the devotees, therefore, represents our worship of the super soul. If we are approaching devotees in a material consciousness, not respecting the super soul in their heart, then we will tend to behave according to the modes of material nature. The third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev talks about devotional service in the modes of nature. Do you remember this section? He describes that there are varieties of devotional service, 81 to be exact, in the modes of nature. Now, it's still devotional service, but it's tinged by the influence of passion, ignorance, and goodness. The mode of passion, for example, causes the devotee to feel I'm the best devotee. And I'm better, I'm in a higher position than this other devotee. Therefore, I'm in a position to lord it over or tell this devotee what to do. That kind of mentality of passionate thinking is exactly the opposite of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us. Amanina, manadena, ready to offer all respects to others and wanting no respect for oneself. So if we identify with seniority, with our position, our experience, then we cannot properly deal with other devotees who will be influenced by the mode of passion. The mode of ignorance causes us to think, I just need to be separate from these devotees. They're too troublesome. Let me just stay away. Let me be by myself and worship Krishna all by myself. That separatist mentality is symptomatic of the mode of goodness, ignorance. But the mode of goodness means that we are treating devotees with respect, that we are honoring the super soul in their heart, that we are considering their pleasure to be more important than our pleasure. This is called the Vaikuntha mentality. If your happiness is more important to me than my happiness, then I am going to be actually happy. I will be happy because you are pleased. It is this reciprocation with the devotees, which is the rehearsal for our reciprocation with Krishna. The wonderful, beautiful relationship with the soul and God that's explained in Krishna consciousness. Again, for me, it was just so much more comprehensive and fulfilling than this notion of God from whom we are, of whom we are afraid. God whom we better obey. Krishna is not that kind of deity. He is just offering us opportunities to approach him, to love him, to serve him. When we make Krishna happy, we feel happy. And when we feel happy, making Krishna happy, we want to make Krishna happier. And when we make Krishna happier, then he makes us happy. This is called Nitya Yukta Upasate, completely inconceivable to the materialist. But the joy that one experiences in pleasing Krishna, it's compared to eating a good meal. When we eat, three things happen, right? First of all, there's enjoyment. Second, there is nourishment. And third, there is cessation of hunger. So these three things happen simultaneously. Similarly, when we serve Krishna, we get nourishment, first of all, or enjoyment, excuse me. We feel happy. And then we get nourishment of knowledge and understanding, our existential position in this world. And finally, we get relief from hunger. That is, we become detached from this world of troubles and sorrow. It no longer affects us as intensely as it did before. So Nitya Yukta Upasate means we make Krishna happy, he makes us happy. And the same relationship exists with the devotees, but in a much more tangible way. We make the devotees happy, then we feel happy. But if we make the devotees unhappy, then no amount of other kinds of piety or service will compensate, because the devotees are so very dear to Krishna. For example, Durvasa Muni, although a very highly learned sage, thinking himself very wise and very elevated, came to the palace of Maharaj Ambarish. So Maharaj Ambarish, it turns out, had been fasting for 40 days, and the time had come for him to break his fast. So when Durvasa Muni came, the king welcomed him, greeted him, and as custom etiquette dictates, he said, "Please come and let me feed you." So the sage said, "Yes, I'll just go bathe, and then I'll have prasadam." So it turns out at that very moment, it was time for the king to break his fast. And it would be a tremendous breach of etiquette for him to eat before feeding his guests. So he asked his ministers what to do. They said, just take a little water, because water simultaneously breaks and does not break a fast. So he took some water. But Durvasa, by his mystic power, was aware of this and considered it highly offensive to his elevated position. So he, out of fury, created this fiery demon to go after the king and kill him. And this demon, as soon as Ambarish Maharaj was threatened, Krishna personally released his Sudarshan chakra and eliminated this demon. But then this chakra turned on Durvasa, and Durvasa began running. Hare Krishna. Radha Gopi Jana Ballabha. Durvasa ran, again by his powerful mystic abilities, ran through heaven, through space. He went to all these demigods and said, please protect me from this chakra. It's about to kill me. No one can help him. Finally, he went to the abode of Lord Vishnu himself. And Lord Vishnu said, I cannot help you. You will have to get the forgiveness of the devotee. So he then finally, he went to Ambarish Maharaj and pleaded, please forgive me. Maharaj Ambarish had no malice whatsoever. Even though his life had been threatened, he was prepared to accept that as Krishna's mercy. But as soon as Durvasa Muni came, yes, of course, I forgive you. In this way, the chakra was removed and Durvasa was spared. So the point is that Krishna does not tolerate offenses to the devotees. He takes it very, very seriously. What does it mean to make an offense? There are three kinds of offenses. Offenses of the mind, offenses of the speech, and offenses of the body, right? So these offenses can exist in our Sangha. For example, just to think ill of a devotee is an offense. Fortunately, in Kali Yuga, we're not liable for our thoughts. It does not constitute an offense immediately, but if we nourish or if we allow that negative mentality to fester, it will manifest as an offense in time. So what do we do if we're thinking ill of a devotee? We have to approach that devotee, the best thing. We approach that devotee and express what it is that has caused us to feel upset. Now, there's a method for doing this called the I message. I message means when we just express our feeling. We don't accuse, we just express. This behavior, your behavior, is causing me to feel this way. See, we can say that with just simple, plain language. This is how I feel. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, when you do this, I feel this way. Okay? So when we give the I message, it is not a you message. You did this. We're not blaming. We're just expressing our feeling. This allows the devotee to respond in one of two ways. The devotee may say, well, you have no right to feel that way. That feeling is not justified. In which case we know what? This is the devotee we can respect from a distance. We cannot be intimate, guyam apyati prichyati, with this person, but we can respect them from a distance. But because devotees are generally very good-hearted, when they understand that somehow something they're doing is making us feel this way, they will ask, how can I? They will apologize. They will say, what can we do to make this right? See, this is another thing to know, that the art of apologizing. How do we apologize? If a devotee were to tell us something, we've offended them. So apologies have three R's. Good apology has three R's, right? First is recognition. I see, I recognize that my behavior is causing you to feel this way or suffer in this way. And the second is remorse. I'm sorry, I did not intend to have this effect on you. And then finally, rectification. What can I do to make it right? Recognition, remorse, and rectification. This is a real apology. not that, oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Not an apology. Acknowledging, apologizing, and then correcting. Recognition, remorse, and rectification. In this way, we deal with devotees in the mode of goodness. We don't let negative thoughts fester. If we can't bring ourselves to the point of giving an I message, at least we should disclose our mind to somebody else. Because it's so easy to have misunderstandings amongst devotees. And that is, again, it's not only failing to worship the super soul, it's an offense. I remember once my good wife told me that a certain devotee had done something. I was the temple president, and she said, this devotee has done something. And it was very, what he had done had been disturbing. Not a serious offense, but unnecessarily disturbing. So I approached the devotee and said, you did this. He said, I didn't do that. My wife had been misinformed, but I was so foolish that I did not get all the information first. So this is another way to avoid offenses amongst devotees. We lead with questions, not with conclusions. Do you know what I mean? We lead with questions. We first get the information, because asking the right question can save us so much embarrassment. If I had just had the presence of mind to just ask this devotee what happened, then I would have avoided the embarrassment of accusing him of something he didn't do, and then having to beg his forgiveness, you see. So what kind of questions? The best kind of questions to ask to build good relationships are called open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that, what? Anyone know a definition? What is that?
Avoiding a certain.
Can't say yes or no. Yes. Open-ended questions cannot be answered yes or no. For example, if we say, how are you doing? Yes. Can't be answered. How are you doing? Open-ended questions are so valuable because they elicit response from the person we're asking. Not only that, they show respect. They communicate respect. I want to understand from you. I want to hear from you. What is going on? How are you doing? How can I help you? These are questions that show respect. We're speaking up. We're speaking respectfully. Amanena manadena. We are treating the other devotee as somebody from whom we want to hear. So this is why open-ended questions, they're non-offensive. They are, and they give us information. So before jumping to conclusions, if we get information, then we can properly deal with others. We have a tendency in the mode of passion to ready, fire, aim. Instead of ready, aim, fire. It's ready, fire, aim. Reacting instead of thinking, instead of getting information. So to deal respectfully with devotees, we need to recognize when our minds are entertaining offensive thoughts and deal with them, ideally one-to-one directly through the I message, if not at least confiding in a mentor and saying, I'm feeling this way. Of course, offenses to the body, these are the kind of offenses that rarely happen amongst devotees. But offenses of speech, those can happen more easily. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about austerity in the mode of goodness as being threefold. There is austerity of the body, austerity of the mind, and austerity of speech. These same three things that cause offenses. So what is austerity of the speech? Anyone remember some of the qualities Krishna lists as austerity of the speech? What is it? Yeah, the English, please. It does not disturb others. Truthful and beneficial. truthful, beneficial, and non-offensive. That is austerity of the speech. Just remembering that and learning to avoid offensive speech will go so far to building good relationships. Huh? Truthfully can be tempered by diplomacy, or tact is perhaps a better word. Tact. In other words, we do not need to be absolutely truthful and blunt. We can be truthful and be a little discreet. We have a lunch program in Gainesville, Florida, where I'm from, on the campus. And we're serving prasad and collecting donations. And sometimes students will come and ask, oh, is it free? And our manager says, well, it's karma free. It's truthful. Now, tact means the art of letting other people have our own way. Letting other people have our own way. This is tied with having the ability to ask good questions. If we ask the right questions, then people will come to the conclusion, perhaps the conclusion that we would like them to come to. For example, if there are dishes to be washed, so we might come in heavy-handed and say, look, I'm senior, you're junior, you go wash those dishes. We might ask an interrogatory question, why aren't those dishes washed? But an open-ended question, tactful question would be, so what's happening with the dishes? This is not accusing, this is just getting information. And we might find the person saying, oh yes, I'm going to wash them as soon as I finish this. Then we have avoided. But if the person says, I don't know, you say, well, I saw quite a few in there, what do you think we should do? Not my problem, I don't care. I see, what do you recommend then we do in order to take care of them? Who should we talk to? What will happen if those dishes remain overnight? Trying to elicit a response from the person is what we seek to have them do. We may or may not be successful. Still, the point is, by leading with the open-ended question, we avoid offenses of the speech. So, worshiping the Super Soul means to deal nicely with the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are so rare, isn't it? So very, very few in this world will ever understand why it's so important to worship Krishna. This is because the world is all headed in the direction of sense gratification. The world is headed in this direction of ignoring the messages from the Super Soul. And just like a parent who is negligent of a child can never really feel fully peaceful. Similarly, if we're neglecting the Super Soul in our heart, we never feel completely at peace with the world or with ourselves. So these messages from the Super Soul come in the form of this intuition of subtle feelings, but they have to be confirmed by our mentors and by Shastra. We get this trifecta, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, that we verify our inclinations. Then this is a good sign that it is indeed what Krishna wants. One time, one of my godbrothers came to Srila Prabhupada. He had gone out and done some very nice service. And he came back to Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. He was a brahmacharya. Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. Of course, taking sannyas is very prestigious in those days. And everybody was in their 20s, and if somebody took sannyas at the young age of following the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though they could still not get discounted insurance on a rent-a-car. So he said, I want to take sannyas. Prabhupada said, why do you want to take sannyas? And he thought for a moment, he said, because it is my desire. Wrong answer. Srila Prabhupada said, we should ask, what is Krishna's desire? So in this way, when we get verification of our inclinations from Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, there's a good chance we are confirming the Super Soul's message. Still, it is very difficult to decide, isn't it? Krishna making me feel this way, Krishna's making me feel that way. Do you ever have this happen? There seem to be two options. They both seem to be Krishna conscious. As the great philosopher Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Often there are two Krishna conscious choices, and both of them have valid Krishna conscious reasons for taking. So what do we do? Arjuna had two choices, but one of them was Krishna conscious and the other was not. But we're not always in that situation. Sometimes we could go this way or that way. So we're advised to consider, try to look over the horizon and say, if I take this choice, what are some of the consequences going to be? And if I take this choice, what are some of the consequences going to be? And then based on the consequences, we decide which set we prefer. Either choice is Krishna conscious. For example, young men or young women think about getting married. Is it a good idea to get married? Well, what are the consequences of getting married? If I get married, this is going to happen. I'll have this, this, and this. Do I want this set of consequences? Am I prepared for this? If I don't get married, there'll be this and this and this consequence. Am I prepared for those? Which is more appealing? Which is more conducive to my nature? That's the sort of question we can present to our mentor, because mentors can have more objective understandings of us. In this world, it's said one who is married laments and one who is not married laments. So you really can't get away from it either way. But which set of consequences are more desirable? This is how we worship the Super Soul. We verify, we don't overestimate our intimate connection with the Super Soul. Surely Krishna in the heart is giving pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada intelligence, right? How to proceed. But even Srila Prabhupada would try things, certainly feeling like he's getting inspiration from Krishna to try them. And if they did not work, then he would abandon them and move on. We tend to feel, or tend to look back at Srila Prabhupada's manifest presence and think, okay, everything was perfect at that time. So we just do everything like that, everything will be fine. We forget that Srila Prabhupada tried, experimented, adjusted, tried something else. I mean, his whole life essentially was trying one way or another to fill his Guru Maharaj's order, wasn't it? His first plan, since he was, or is said to, the astrologer predicted he'd be one of the richest men in India. So his first plan was to become a very successful businessman, get a lot of money, and then use that to spread Krishna consciousness. That was his first inclination. So he got off to a good start by getting a high post in his father's friend's chemical company. And it was a post that made his co-workers kind of envious because he was so new, being promoted immediately to an executive position. So he got this good start and he was doing well, so well that he got an offer from a competitor. So the competitor offered him an executive position with an even better salary. So Srila Prabhupada said, I was young and a little puffed up. So I told them, all right, I will take your job if you give me this and this and this. And they said, forget it. So he said, I could have been sitting in an office signing checks and making a very big salary. But I was young, I'm puffed up, and I asked for all these things, and so they rejected me. But because he had even been talking to this other company, the senior people in his company complained to the owner. Oh, this Abhay is talking to your competitors. And so he lost that position. do. So he said, all right, well, then I'll start my own business. Which he did. And he was doing well, but then I could get the impression from reading about his life that Prabhupada was a little disinterested in business by nature. He was more interested in studying and writing Shastra. So somehow he was very generous with his clients, and then they would cheat him, and so he was not making money in his business. And then as the years went by later, he got lost the whole thing. So Prabhupada's initial plan was shot. And he was speaking to a godbrother about it, and they were reflecting on a verse from the 11th canto, Yasyaham anugrahami harishe tadhanam shanai, where Krishna says, the first installment of my mercy to someone is I take away all their money. Because as soon as I take away their money, then all their friends and relatives reject them. Nobody wants anything to do with them. That does not necessarily have to apply to everybody. But when this happened to Prabhupada, indeed, his family and friends rejected him. So he ended up alone, very impoverished, but still very happy in the service that he had of carrying out his Guru Maharaj's order according to his ability. So then he got some opportunity in Jhansi, a little town where some people were interested, and he was given a property and started a little temple. And he thought, from there, we will start this international movement of Vaishnavism from this little dusty town of Jhansi. So he was off to a good start again, but then some intrigue came. The governor's wife wanted the place, and he lost everything. So there he was again, having to start over. Then he tried publishing Back to Godhead, doing that for many years, publishing, distributing. And then a friend advised, why don't you try books? So he tried the books. The books gave him some notoriety, but still, after all these years of struggle, he had one casual following. And he was trying to go to Japan for an international religious conference that got shut down. He was trying various ways to contact people in other parts of the world. Finally, Krishna arranged he could come to America on the Jaladuta. And there he was in Boston. He stepped off the boat and he said, Krishna, why have you brought me here? Anyway, he said, if I tell them the four regulative principles, they will say, Swamiji, please go home. It's impossible. How could I reach you? Anyway, let me try. So he tried. First, he went to Butler. He was giving lectures at the YMCA. And after that 30-day window had expired, then he went to stay with a professor in Pennsylvania briefly, gave some classes. Then he went to New York at the invitation of some impersonalist Swami. He stayed there and he was giving classes. He was going here and there and speaking at the Tagore Society and other places. But that wasn't working. So he thought, okay, let me change again. See, this is the point. He'd try something, it didn't work, he would try something else. So the other thing, then he said, I need a place where people can come to me. So first he tried that in a loft with a drugged out hippie, and that didn't work. And finally, he got a place which he could totally control. So this was his MO. He did not feel Krishna's giving me messages and I know perfectly what to do. He was always willing to try different things. So we worship the Super Soul by recognizing that we don't have a perfect connection and that Krishna may want us to learn things also through trial and error. It's said that good judgment is the result of experience, and experience is the result of bad judgment. There was a story of an executive who worked for IBM, and he made a mistake that cost the company $10 million. So he was just devastated. He wrote a resignation letter, took it into his boss. I'm so sorry. The boss looked at the letter and said, you can't quit. We just spent $10 million educating you. Worshiping the super soul means we try and we do our best, and then we are also open to see what is Krishna's actual plan. So these are some ideas of how we can worship the super soul. Any comments or questions, reflections? Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much for a wonderful explanation about how we can worship the soul, especially talking about having a relationship with devotees. My question is on when you talk about the intuitiveness that Paramatma within our heart always inspires us to do in a certain way. In my personal experience, sometimes it goes really well. I can hear the voice and I follow that. But after a certain period of time, I don't know what happens. I start hearing the other voice and I lose that connection. And now the desire is there to hold on, because when you're at the first level, even if the mind comes to jump and are judging the devotee, say, oh, it's a voice of the mind. You just ignore it like this. So you don't even reach to a mature thought. It's immature because offending, but from that perspective. So now I want to go back to that previous state because I'm suffocating in this stage. I know that stage was better because I wasn't even going to the stage two. What should I do to go back to that stage?
Well, are you sure that the original message was really what Krishna wanted? See, at least for me, an experience that when I know that what I'm doing is authorized by my superiors, it is authorized in the Shastra, it suits my own nature and inclination, that's when I feel completely uninhibited and joyful in my devotional service. If one of those ingredients is not there, like if it's something that I'm really not inclined to do, or it's something that's not authorized, or it's something that's against the Shastra, the same degree of enthusiasm is not there. That's my own experience, perhaps others have too. So probably, if I were having that dilemma you're describing, I'd probably ask, is this really an authorized service? Is this really what I'm being asked to do, being expected to do? And is it really my nature to do this? Especially young people need to try a variety of things. By the time we're a little older, then we should have a good idea of what we're good at, what we like to do, where we can excel. Krishna has a certain way for each one of us to serve him that is unique. So the journey of self-realization is finding out what that is. What is that unique way we have to please Krishna? And then when we're doing that, we are completely without asamshaya, we're without doubt, without any kind of obstruction in our mind. So when you might take that obstruction in the mind as super soul saying, okay, is this really the right thing? The right thing for you, the right thing that your mentors want. Okay. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Other thoughts, reflections? We go for short Prabhu.
Was amazing practice. My heart listened. One day I asked a question and it didn't say question. So I did something in my mind. Is it coming from my mind or is it coming from my soul?
Yes. Yeah, same question. Is it my mind or is it the super soul?
And listen, of course. Never major decisions we can, but day to day and minute to minute,
Yes.
and especially impelled by Rajo and Dhamma, somebody impelled more passion, more ignorance. We may be cheated to think actually more ignorance, but it's not. How do we make sure at least we are safe? Because you made a point, machine takes softness is very seriously. I'm sure when you're with your religion at this stage, I don't want to ruin a faith, so I'm sure you understand the question. How do you make sure?
It is true that we are offended occasionally. People abuse us. So how do we handle that? I gave one suggestion, that we talk to the person, make sure that they understand how we feel. And see how they respond. But if we cannot reconcile somehow or other, and we have some ill feelings towards others, then one mantra to remember is, may they learn in joy. Generally, if somebody has hurt us, we want them to get hurt back. That's the mode of passion. Right? So may they learn in joy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a nice mantra to remember. When we're upset with somebody and we can't do anything about it. May they learn in joy. The main thing for which we want to go on, we want to move on. The mode of ignorance makes us reflect on the past, which leads often to depression. And the mode of passion makes us worry about the future, and which makes us anxious. So the mode of goodness is free of past and future, and it is very much in the present. So this is how being in the mode of goodness allows us to be more perceptive of messages from the super soul. If we're very distracted, we might, have you ever had this experience, like you have this little inkling, oh, maybe I should check the room before I go out. No, it's time, I gotta go out. And then you go out and you remember, oh, if I had just gone in the room, I would have bought this thing that I actually need right now. I'd have my passport before getting on the plane. So the super soul in the moment is giving us messages. Being in the mode of goodness allows us to be more attuned to those messages. Tadam rajas tamo bhava kamalopatayasche cheta etayar namipam stipam sattve prasidati. Get freed of the modes of passion and ignorance by practicing bhakti and come to the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is still material, but evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata. Bhagavad tattva vijnana mukta sangha sujayate. In the mode of goodness, when we hear messages of Krishna, then we can actually take them to heart. We're not worried about, when we're in class, we're not worried about the future, we're not focusing on something that's upset us, just hearing. And then Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, Krishna in the heart, rectifies all misgivings. So this is the process, and it's a lifelong struggle. You know, it doesn't happen just because we hear and understand it. We have to be very vigilant. Am I in the modes of passion and ignorance right now? Of course, yes, taking anxiety for Krishna is one thing. And that should be very stimulating, you know. We're putting on a big festival. We have to work very hard. We're taking a big project on. It's bracing, it's stimulating, it enlivens us, it challenges us. And we feel like we're rising to the occasion and reciprocating with Krishna as we're firing on all cylinders. So that's why Prabhupada said that challenges, devotees always need fresh challenges so that we can remain at our best. So these subtle messages of the super soul, always there. In the mode of goodness, we can be more tuned in. I hope that is addressing your question. Thank you. Anything else, Bruce?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. First of all, we are so grateful for your presence and your amazing wisdom. Prabhuji, I was talking when you mentioned about the word enthusiasm. That is the first thing, Prabhuji. Whenever we hear your name, the word enthusiasm comes to our mind. We're so inspired to, you know, see you that way, Prabhuji. I was thinking about this quite a few times. Whenever my enthusiasm and eagerness to serve, when I lack enthusiasm and eagerness to serve, that is the time my mind wanders on the negative aspects. So it is very difficult to keep, as the year goes, to keep the same enthusiasm, because probably my material mind thinks that the enthusiasm comes because of the success we have in our personal sadhana or our preaching efforts and things. When there is some stagnancy or where we don't see the results we want to achieve, then I lack enthusiasm. Then I want to find faults. So how do I work on this enthusiasm aspect?
Right, how to work on enthusiasm, utsahan. This utsahan is recommended and also dhairya, right? Patience. And these are two contradictory qualities, aren't they? Srila Prabhupada is our acharya. So how did he remain enthusiastic in the face of so many setbacks? He was just focused on the order of his Guru Maharaj. So enthusiasm comes when we know that we are doing our best to serve our Guru Maharaj under whatever circumstances we are in. Failure is very painful if we have something that we're trying to do and it doesn't work out. It's not, there's no glossing over it, it's heartbreaking. Those heartbreaks, though, will not stop us from continuing. Just see how many times Srila Prabhupada had heartbreaking setbacks, time and time and time again. He never lost his enthusiasm. He said, I'm not one to be discouraged easily. So we have some grand plan. It turns out it's not Krishna's plan. We hit a brick wall. We cannot go any further. Painful, but it just means, okay, we have to try another way. We have to try another way. Edison famously invented the light bulb. So they had learned at that time that if electricity goes through some materials, it will create light. The challenge was to find one that would tolerate a constant flow of electricity. He tried 10,000 different substances until he came upon tungsten. And tungsten allowed the light to shine on, and the whole world was illuminated. So one of his fellows asked him, weren't you discouraged after failing 10,000 times? And he said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways it didn't work. So Prabhupada said succinctly, failure is the pillar of success. Therefore, when we fail and when our plans don't work out, say what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness is unprecedented in this movement, in ISKCON. We're trying to reach people who have like no punya whatsoever and bring them to Vaishnavism. There's no playbook. There's no manual. We just have to try this and try that and be pleased with a little incremental progress and build on it. You know, so we have so much opportunity, so much service, as Prabhupada said. You know, Lord Chaitanya delivered India and he left the rest of the world to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So how we'll do that, then we'll just have to be prepared that we'll try something, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. Some people leave ISKCON out of ignorance. They say, ISKCON is too complicated. I'm just going to do my own thing, and I'll serve in my own way. So I often think, and this happened to many of my god brothers, kind of went off the rails in one way or another. And I always think, when we meet Srila Prabhupada again, we say, okay, Prabhupada, ISKCON had problems, so I left. Or Prabhupada, ISKCON had problems, so I tried to fix them. Even though I failed, I didn't do, at least I tried to fix them. That was my, which would we rather offer to Srila Prabhupada? All right, so we'll stop there. Okay, one more question for Luigi. Yes. Any of the Matajis? Any? Oh, okay.
Try to look success as a criteria.
Yes.
And the devotees also gain get the faith on the success of the discipline, not the failures on that. So devotees also may lose the faith and on the failures. Very easily myself. So how I can get better in that understanding?
Srila Prabhupada advised us to work collectively. So before taking decisions, if we take input from everybody and share that responsibility and the weight of the decision, and then make the best decision we can under those circumstances, having heard from everybody, then everybody shares in the success or failure. It's when we act unilaterally that we can cause people to lose faith. We take some decision, act on it, very sure that it's what Krishna wants us to do, and then it doesn't work. Yes. So Srila Prabhupada used to take advice from his young disciples. We'd call his young disciples together and hear their opinions, and then he would make his decision. Sometimes all the disciples would advise in one way, and then he would do the other thing. Anyway. But this is the point, to show respect and to hear and to take all that into consideration. All right, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Gopikanta Vallabha ki jai, Skan Farmington Hills ki jai.
HG Kalakanta Pranhu ki jai.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.